This was the reason as to why you sometimes found me crying. I didn't want to leave because I was naive enough to think that perhaps he might change his mind and start treating me better. The result of this is the fact that you are currently reading the contents of the envelope because I'm no longer there for you. And for that reason, I know that I have failed you. And, although I have several grievances in my heart, without any ability, I'm afraid that there's nothing that you can do to Dalton to repay what he did to me. And, although your strength should be able to rise as long as you use what I have left for you, it might take even a decade before you can compete with the Alfonso family. So, even if you have a heart that is full of rage, anger, hatred, and sadness, I hope that you won't lose your mind and act impulsively as attacking the Alfonso family when you are weak. Grow strong first before you can try doing that. But then, let's put that aside. I still have to inform you of some things that are hidden, some of the mysteries of the world where we are in. Inside the envelope, there are two other things that I left for you. You have a part of your memories that are sealed. You will have to use the pills inside the envelope to be able to unseal them. As for the result, that was one thing that I hoped that you would follow according to what your heart tells you. It's reason as to why you were supposed to open the envelope if you ever thought of starting your own family. The memories of yours that are sealed contain a good part of your life that will surely affect your choice of a partner. So, I hope that you haven't fallen in love yet, or you might have someone's child heartbroken. The more that Jack read the letter that was left by his mother, the more his heart thumped. He couldn't believe that there was something like the sealing of his memory. This was beyond his comprehension. Could there be hidden secrets here in the world that he actually didn't know about? Well, it was true that he didn't know many secrets. But how could there be several supernatural secrets that had yet to be exposed? Although he was calm due to the fact that the existence of the system was one of the supernatural events, he had never expected that there would be others in existence. Furthermore, even his mother knew about it. Jack couldn't help but wonder if the whole Jesta family knew about the existence of the supernatural secrets. If so, why would Jonathan hide this from him? In any case, Jack continued to read the letter. As for the contents of your memories, I don't think that I have to say a word about them because you'll be able to find out what it is that you have forgotten. After you find what you have lost, I hope that you can do according to what your heart wills. But just an information in advance, in the memories of yours, you will know someone that you'll only have to look for when you believe that you have some ability. That person is someone that I came to know during the years that I was in the Alfonso family. She used to come to Crystal City. As for the reason, she always said that this was related to business. As for the secret that I'm hiding, I don't think that I can expose it to you because of my concern for you. The moment that you know about it, you will no longer be able to live a normal, peaceful life. But you have to know that the sealing of your memories is related to me. And the reason behind this is because I didn't want to implicate someone else in the matters concerning me. But now that I have left, even if you get your memories back, nothing will happen. So, I would like you to take care, my son. The world is full of mysteries that are hiding in the dark. And these mysteries are like a Pandora box. When you open them, you have to expect anything, benefits or losses. And none of the two is something simple. As for the Jesta family, if you happen to encounter someone, I just hope that you won't reveal that you are my son to them. After all, not everyone in the family will welcome another competitor into the family. Well, since I'm no longer there with you, I guess that I left you without saying goodbye. I can only say goodbye to you in this way. Goodbye then. Sorry for failing you, and I hope that you won't face difficulties. Take care. That was where the letter ended at. Jack had his brows raised as his mind spun, several thoughts going through his mind continuously. He didn't know what to say, and neither did he know what to do. But he thought of something. Angel, why is it that the system couldn't help me to remove the seal that is on my memories even after it has been with me for almost 2 months now? Jack asked. Well, you can't just go around and start blaming the system for your incompetence. What do you mean by my incompetence? Jack was flabbergasted and didn't know what to say about Angel's choice of words. That's right. You are the one who is incompetent here. After all, you have yet to upgrade the system to the 2nd level. Had you done that, the system would have simply removed the seal from your memories. Jack was surprised. Then, he asked, if the system can only help me after it upgrades to the 2nd level, isn't it the one that is supposed to be called incompetent? Not really. The system has the ability to remove the seal on your memories at the moment, but you have to fulfill the conditions for it to be upgraded to the second level. In this way, you would have proved your worth as a hard-working person. In this way, the system can do that for you for free and there wouldn't be any side effects. Jack didn't expect that the system would be testing him in the end. He took a deep breath. It seemed that he was missing a lot of things till this point due to the fact that the level of the system was low. Excuse me, the system's level isn't low. It's just that your authority's level is low. That's what you are upgrading. The system's authority level. Didn't you previously say something like, system upgrade condition? Jack wondered to himself. But due to the fact that he still has other things to take care of, he could only set the thoughts aside and deal with what he had just read. The sealing of his memories was related to his mother. The purpose of this being that she didn't want to involve someone else on something that she didn't even mention. From this, Jack could tell that there was something else that his mother was hiding. Could it be that she didn't want to involve the other party with the Alfonso family? That was unlikely. Then, could it be related to the Gesta family? That was a question that he had no answer to at the moment. Then, who was this person that his mother referred to? Could it be that she knew something about his mother? Thinking of this, Jack took the small envelope and looked at it. He could feel that there was something like a card that was present inside it. And there were two small other things inside as well. Removing the seal, Jack opened the envelope. Inside, Jack found that the first thing was a bank card. And it was one of the highest level cards of the Flyers Bank, a platinum card. Jack's brows rose. Then, he looked at the card's details. What surprised him was the fact that this card was registered under his name. But what he couldn't understand was the fact that, when his mother passed away, he was only 15. So, where did the ID that was used to register the account come from? Jack's thoughts were still roaming when suddenly, a system prompt appeared. You've received $1.6 billion. Multiplier applied. You receive $160 billion. Would you like all the money to be transferred into a single account? Jack's jaw dropped. Another one? How does this even work? Jack asked on disbelief. Host, you must be a person of a short memory. You have perhaps forgotten the system's description of income. So, I'll help you remember for free. Then, in front of Jack, a projection appeared. This was the projection of Jack when he was in Inchoate City's Yellow Street. Inside the apartment that he had rented there, Jack, who was seated on the bed, was looking in the empty air in front of him. Then, just as Jack was startled by the scene of the projection appearing, something else made his expression turn strange. From another person's perspective, Jack could see as several system prompts appeared one after the other. It seems that you don't know the definition of income. I'll define it for you. Income is anything that comes in. If you earn money from stealing or robbing, that's income. If you go around being beaten up before being paid, that's income. In other words, as long as you do something and you get something else in return, that will be counted as income. Of course, the system limits what income will be multiplied. If you steal from a person, that will not be multiplied. If you receive bribes, that will not be multiplied. You have just received $1.6 billion from your mother. That's as the income from the inheritance that your mother left for you. Since it's not counted as illegal as nobody is going to suffer, it has been multiplied. Jack could clearly remember these things due to the advantage of having the professional combat ability. He could even remember the tone that Angel used when it was saying all these. And now, he could see that this was an exact replica of what had happened there. Jack wondered, could it be that the system always records what happens all this while? Not really. This is just a fragment that the system has extracted from your memories. So, there's no need for you to panic. How the F***ck am I not supposed to panic when you are clearly telling me that you can simply access my memories before projecting them out? Won't this be bad if you project my secrets just when my enemies are around? Jack couldn't help but curse when he heard Angel saying that there was no need to panic. What's there to worry about? After all, this projection can only be seen by you. So, there's nothing that you have to be worried about. No secrets of yours are exposed.
No secrets exposed?
How can there be secrets between two people? Now, I don't think that I have any secrets at all. Jack lamented. Seeing that the system had gone silent, Jack sighed before replying to the question that the system had asked before. Just transfer everything in a single account. I can do other transfers later after seeing the big string of numbers. Jack replied as he went on to take the two small things that were in the envelope. Jack found that the two were actually pills, and they were green in color. As for their size, they were half the size of a rice grain. So, this was what his mother had told him to use to recover his memory? Did he have to take the two at the same time, or was he supposed to take the two of them at the different times? But feeling the vibrating of his phone, Jack put the envelope aside. He had to enjoy seeing the long string of zeros in his account. Flyers Bank Savings account received $160 billion. Current balance is $234,716,513,633. Jack got a little ecstatic. His balance had already gone past the $200 billion threshold. Now, he was in the level where he could start comparing with the Gesta family in terms of wealth. And if they came to a situation where they had to bid for something, Jack believed that he would be able to win the bid. After all, who could guarantee that the Gesta family could easily fork out $230 billion at this moment? What they had in plenty was the influence and assets. As for him, what he had in plenty was cash. System. I think that I have fulfilled two conditions for the system upgrade. My authority level? Jack asked. You have only fulfilled a single condition. The moment that the system prompt appeared, Jack felt that there was something wrong. And true to his intuition, something happened next that nearly made him spit out blood. Flyers Bank. You have successfully transferred $50 billion to, and #/@+. Your current balance is $184,716,513,633. The message that came from the bank was an indication that $50 billion had just been credited. This was completely out of Jack's expectations. He had just received the money, but they had already began spending it? This was ridiculous. And what's more, the one that received the money wasn't mentioned. This made Jack think that he had to ask the bank what was going on. How could his money be transferred somewhere else, and the recipient wasn't even stated? And although he knew that this had to be the mechanization of the system, he still had to find someone to blame, right? System, why the hell did you take away my $50 billion just like that? Jack complained. Well, you fulfilled the condition only after the money was transferred. The moment that the system prompt disappeared, another one appeared. On this prompt, there was the list of the requirements that needed to be fulfilled, and one of them had a tick in front of it, showing that it was completed. But Jack then saw something that made him stunned. Although he was still feeling hurt that he was no longer having hundreds of billions in his account, he still had to take care of some other problem. System, Celine is now my girlfriend. And, according to the conditions, I have to find a girlfriend, of which I do currently have one. So, why is the condition not yet fulfilled? Jack asked. He was currently grumpy at losing a lot. He had thought that the system only wanted him to have the money in his account. Who could have thought that it wanted him to have this balance so that it could be snatched away? You should know the answer yourself. Although you have agreed to be together with her, if your mother willed it, you would be willing to let go of the relationship as long as there was a good enough reason. Another thing to note is that, although it's true that the two of you share the special feelings, you haven't solidified the relationship between the two of you, and there's nothing that proves that the two of you are in a relationship. Jack was silent for a moment. That was the truth. He had impulsively agreed to have Celine as his girlfriend. Then, he had thought that he could open the envelope on this day so that he could actually find out what his mother had in store for him and that she wanted him to open it before he entered the relationship. And true, he found something that was making him wonder what was hidden in his memories, considering that he couldn't feel as if there was any blank in his memories. No matter how he looked at it, his mother had mentioned something about him heartbreaking another's child's heart. That meant that his mother was sure that if he was currently in a relationship, he would abandon it. But was Jack going to abandon it that easily? There was a special feeling in his heart for Celine, and he didn't find any solid reason that indicated that he had to leave Celine and be with another girl. So, although he was having a certain premonition in his heart at the moment, he couldn't tell if this was a good premonition or a bad one. So, he could only grit his teeth and take the pills so that he could make sure that what his mother had told him was true. But how was he supposed to take the pills? All of them at once, Or was he supposed to actually take a single pill at a time? Or was he supposed to take the 2 pills at different times? He was now in a dilemma. Jack wasn't sure on what to do. After all, he didn't know if the pill was like the body-strengthening pill. Maybe he had to do something so that it will be effective, or was he supposed to actually take them at once? Each and every choice had a downside that it may fail to be effective. 2 at a time might lead to overdose. 1 at a time might make the pill ineffective if he was supposed to take them at once. After thinking for a long period of time, he could only turn to the system for help. System, how am I supposed to take the pills? Jack asked. It's not the system's responsibility to tell you about what you are supposed to do in such a situation. Come on. It won't cost you a thing if you tell me, right? Jack was unwilling to give up. That's something that you have to deal with by yourself. As for the cost, the only thing that the system can give you without considering the costs would only be the rewards after you have accomplished something. Have I not just accomplished something? I have already fulfilled one of the conditions. Doesn't that prove that I'm working hard? Jack stated. Well, you are working hard, but you are still forgetting about other things. You got the Glaze Hotel at the start of this month, but you haven't even paid it a visit. And you were supposed to increase its net worth by 100% by the end of 6 months. When he was reminded of this, Jack was stunned. He had indeed ignored the Glaze Hotel. He had to take care of it after he was done with GVSL and the anti-leukemia pills production issue. Well, I still have other things to take care of. So, I will have to deal with it later on. But I'll still be able to fulfill the conditions that you gave. Jack got an excuse. Yeah, busy playing basketball and going on dates. Shut it already. I played basketball as that was a task that I had to complete. I went on a date with Celine because I need a girlfriend, and this is a condition that you set for me. How can you blame me? Jack retorted. Come on. You could have already told me what to do, you know? Jack went on. Just take a single pill. That's enough. Just 5 words made you speaking several long paragraphs at once. Man, you could have done this long ago. Jack complained. Then, he thought of something. Hey, if I take this pill, will there be any side effects? If there is, I can simply wait till I upgrade my authority to the 2nd level. Jack asked. No side effects, as the one that condensed the pills is the one that sealed your memories. Jack didn't know what to say about this. In any case, he decided to put that aside and focus on the present. He had to take the pill so that he could know what secrets were being hidden in his memories. As he thought about this, Jack took a deep breath before he finally swallowed the pill. The moment that the pill entered his mouth, it immediately melted. What followed the swallowing was that Jack felt something exploding in his mind. Then, like a dam whose banks had been broken, several pieces of his memories began appearing in his mind. Unlike what he had expected, he didn't feel uncomfortable at all. In fact, he felt that he had regained something that he had lost for a long time. And for that reason, he felt extremely comfortable and at the same time relieved. In his memories, there was an image of another person appearing in his mind. This person was there since he was 3 years old, and they had been doing a lot of things together. She held a special position in his heart, second only to his mother's. Jack's heart raced as he went through the pieces of his memories that were now coming back to him. The good times of his childhood, the time that he didn't know anything about his situation in the Alfonso family. At that time, there was someone that he could spend his time with. What really made his heart beat faster was the fact that this person was none other than Celine. She was the one that he had spent his childhood with. That was until his memories got sealed. From then, he turned extremely cold because he had lost his mother and someone else that was so important to him. Jack finally understood why there was a sense of familiarity when he met with Celine. It turned out that this was because the 2 of them had grown up together. He finally understood why he had the impulse to strangle Ben when he stated that he was the one that was going to dance with Celine. Jack took a deep breath. He didn't need a genius to tell him that the other pill belonged to Celine. It seemed that her memories were sealed as well. In his memories, although it was true that some parts were blurry as he couldn't remember everything, he could still remember that there was another figure that kept on appearing other than his mother. That was Celine's mother, whose name he didn't catch. In any case, according to how close the 2 were back then, Jack could tell that she was the one that his mother told him to look for. At this moment, Jack's feelings for Celine had broadened. Perhaps even his mother would have never expected that the two of them would meet even before Jack could unseal his memories. He could now tell why his mother told him to open the envelope first before he got into a relationship. If he was with another girl instead of Celine, then things would have gotten extremely complicated for him to deal with. After all, the two of them, he and Celine, had planned to even become husband and wife. In other words, they were childhood sweethearts. Well, although they were childhood promises and might as well be ignored, Jack didn't want to become a person who didn't keep his promises. And so, he would want to look for a way that he could fulfill his part. But now, there was no use of thinking in such a manner because he no longer needed to do anything. The two of them were already in a relationship, and there was nothing that needed to be done. He only had to give Celine the pill so that she could recover her memories. In this way, she too could understand the relationship between the two of them. As he thought of that, Jack decided that he would have to deal with some loose ends first before turning his attention to Celine. Apart from helping him in completing the system requirements for his authority to be increased, she also held a special position in his heart. So, he thought that it would be better if he could remove all the distractions that could come in between the two of them as long as he wanted to spend time with her. With the help of Denali and Ayush, Jack believed that it won't be a problem for him to be able to monopolize the market. But it was obvious that he would have to deal with the issue of increasing his company's net worth. And he was going to make sure that he monopolized the small markets first. The requirement stated that he had to have 5 companies that monopolized the industry and had a net worth of $50 billion. But if he came to the entertainment sector, it was obvious that $50 billion wouldn't be enough for him to monopolize the market. After all, the company that Celine had just gotten the 12% shares, the Rose, it had a net worth of $106 billion. Jack took out his phone and made a call. "Hello, boss." Grace's voice reached Jack's ears. "Hello. How are things doing there in Inchoate and Venture City?" Jack asked. He had left the development of the grocery department to Grace. So, he decided to follow along the lines and see what was happening. With $184 billion in his account, even if Grace stated that the money that she had on her wasn't enough, Jack would simply give her more so that she could speed up the development of the grocery department. That's right. He had decided that he was going to monopolize the grocery department, just like how he was going to do the security department. Things are steady, but I had to slow down the development of the department first. All in all, we have already gained a footing in Venture City due to the large amount of capital. Grace explained. Jack nodded when he heard this. Then, after he thought of something, he said, "You should be having a few people coming to the business overlord building soon as they're going to be in charge of security. You can ask them and cooperate to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Another thing that I would like to know is the issue concerning funds. I want you to speed up the expansion of the grocery stores. No matter the amount of money that is needed, don't be afraid of spending them. I want you to monopolize the 2 cities in the grocery department by the end of this month." Jack stated. This time, he had decided to set a target that had to be achieved. He was going to provide all the capital that was needed. Even if he had to buy the competitors' stores, he would, as long as he could monopolize the market in the city. That's going to make us spend more while earning less, Grace stated. She could analyze something like that due to her experience. Jack wanted speed and not profits. So, it was obvious that he had to spend more than what he was earning. Well, I already told you that the amount of money that you are going to spend doesn't matter. Just make sure that you complete the task by the end of this month. Time is tight, Jack stated. He didn't want to stay like this for a very long time. After all, this was simply a condition that he had to fulfill for level 2. If he had to complete another one for level 3 or level 10, how long was he going to take if he had to spend years for the first level up? Okay, boss. Grace agreed immediately. Although it was true that Jack was putting her under a lot of pressure by asking her to monopolize the market in less than a month, she still had confidence in herself. The reason behind this being the fact that she was someone who wasn't used to being supervised closely. All she wanted was to be assigned the duty, given all that she needs and wait for the results. And that was exactly what Jack was giving her. He had given her the ground, the resources, and the connections that she needed in order to complete the task. What she loved the most was the fact that Jack trusted her to do this. Since he handed over the grocery department to her, he had never interfered other than the time that there were a few goons that tried causing trouble for the stores. But That would no longer be a problem because there was going to be a security department on which she could depend on in order to take care of such a situation. And she was confident in her ability. Since Jack didn't care about the profits for the time being, she might as well spurge the money that he had given her in order to establish the best foundation that would be a good source of money for Jack. One more thing. Have you began distributing the cars that I bought yet? Jack asked. The Bentegas that he had bought might be collecting dust in the garage of the palace by now. That wasn't something that he had bought them for. Yes. So far, I have distributed 10 of them. As for the Freightliners, we had to order a few more because the other 5 were not enough to cater for all the stores in 2 cities. Grace responded, That's good then. I'm going to transfer to you $5 billion. I want the results as soon as possible. And if you manage to do well, I might promote you to be the head of 2 departments. Jack said, What? $5 billion? That's too much for the 2 cities. Grace exclaimed, I want quality work, Grace. And if you think that the money is too much for the 2 cities to handle, you might as well spread the influence to the other neighboring cities. And, please remember, all the revenue that is earned should be used as capital. Don't be stingy with the employees and their salaries. Jack said, Okay, boss. You will get the good news soon, Grace stated before hanging up. At this moment, she was simply thinking about what she was going to do in order to make sure that the results that were achieved were higher than Jack's expectations of her. The following morning, Jack woke up and prepared himself to head to GVSL. The moment that he got out of his room, he found that Denali had already prepared for him breakfast. After the meal, Jack went down to get the small bottles that he needed for the body strengthening solution. After transferring the solution with the help of Denali, the duo headed to the company. Jack drove Dixon's car so that he could return it there while Denali drove the Lamborghini Urus. It seemed that he would have to buy another car, or he might as well get the Bugatti that was in Kuwait City to Khartoum City. There were still many things that needed to be taken care of. When they got there, it was already 9:30. The headquarters was already busy with people rushing from here to there. The training had already began. And since this was the first month of training, there were a lot more people that were training here. While Denali headed into Tracy's office to talk to her about what they were going to do about the rest of the group of mercenaries that had joined the previous day, Jack headed for the area where Livingstone was. He still had to look for the group that was from the army. Other than the fact that they were strong, it was also true that they had the best discipline. It would be better if they could join his company, so that they could be instructors to instill discipline in those that joined the company during the training. Well, the 2 months of training could be considered as the probation period. The training that they were taking wasn't just about running around. It was also a matter of skills that they would require for them to be referred to as professionals. As for those that were already working, they would be replaced by the ones that had completed their training so that they too could train. As for the matter of getting clients, that was something that Jack never worried about. As a person that had the hopes of monopolizing the entire security industry, how could he simply stop doing things because he had no clients? He would just steal the clients of other security companies before kicking them out of the market. He could as well poach their best staff. Since he was supposed to monopolize the industry, he might as well go all out. Anyway, that kind of means was going to be used on only those that dared to play dirty with him. As for the reason as to why he was going to see Livingstone, although he had instructed Tracy on what to do, he was just curious about the people that Livingstone had brought. And although they had yet to meet Denali, he might as well try making his assumptions of the character before Denali did. Perhaps he might catch the trick behind her ability. When Jack got there, he found that the group was training. It was only that this time, there were actually 6 people that were acting as instructors. But they dared not to try sparring with Klein and the others because although the group lacked skills, they could make up for this by their absolute advantage in strength. Jack scrutinized the other 5 people who were also looking at him when they noticed that he had come here. He could tell from the way that they were standing or moving that they all had injuries on them. That was something that Jack had learnt after observing Livingstone. With his combat experience, he could easily tell the weak points of a person, and the injuries that these 5 had suffered from could be said to be their weak points. Boss, you are here. Livingstone stopped trying to teach someone some basic fighting moves and headed towards Jack with a smile on his face. Now, he no longer referred to Jack as Mr. Jack. Instead, due to the favor that Jack had done him by restoring his fighting ability and improving it further, He was more than willing to refer to Jack as boss. And the smile on his face was not only due to his appreciation to Jack, but because he was proud that he was the first one amongst the group to get to above his peak. Jack nodded in response. Then, he continued eyeing the five as if he was trying to see through them. But no matter what he did, he actually couldn't see a thing. Jack could only give up in the end because he couldn't see a thing. And although he had a chance to choose a skill and height as well select it, he didn't think that it was necessary because Denali was there. He wanted to keep this chance in case of emergencies. If he ended up wasting it, he might regret it in the future. Well, although there was an emergency program of the system, it wasn't something good for him to always take tasks to get something that he wanted. Seeing that Jack's gaze was on the five, Livingstone introduced them. Boss, these five are my comrades. We were all in the same company back in the army. 2 of them were in the same platoon as me. Back then, we were ambushed by our enemies. As a result, we had a bomb that went off, injuring and killing some of the members of the company. What followed that was a rain of bullets that then cleared another comrades of ours. I was unlucky to suffer from the rain of bullets, and 3 of them suffered from the same. As for the other 2, they suffered from the aftermath of the blast that led to a lot of gravel and splinters that pierced their bodies. As Livingstone spoke, Jack could detect the anger and sadness in his voice. A squad, a platoon, and finally a company. The company consisted of about 100 people. So, it wasn't hard for them to form a good relationship. And, to see a comrade that had been with you for a long time, through the training and several missions getting killed or severely injured, it was truly infuriating. And what's even more frustrating was the fact that they were crippled and they could no longer avenge their comrades. Jack nodded when he heard the story behind what had happened. But he wasn't going to decide on whether these guys were going to be recruited or not, since that was Denali's work. Livingstone then looked at the group and spoke again. This time, there was admiration in his eyes and voice as he introduced Jack. This is my boss that I had told you about. He is the one that granted me a new life. And since we were friends back in the army, I thought that it wouldn't be bad to have you come here and get my boss's help. But I could only bring you guys here because he was the one that approved to my request. Livingstone stated. He had already talked to the group before and was just repeating himself to make sure that they remembered it clearly. He had also told them that they could only be given the treatment as long as they worked for Jack, and they might be rejected according to Jack's judgment. So, although they came here with hope that they would be healed, they had to know that there was a possibility that they might actually not be healed. After the introduction, Jack basically knew 1, 2, 3 about the 5. After that, Jack wanted to call Denali to check them out when she came with Tracy. He had instructed Tracy, and perhaps she didn't know that he was here with Denali. So, she had asked Denali to come and look at the guys that Livingstone had brought just as Jack had told her. If they were accepted, she would complete the recruitment procedures for them. She greeted Jack and the others before standing behind Jack to wait for the results. Although she was surprised that Jack was here as well, she didn't say a word about it. At the end of the day, this was his company and she was an employee here. Remembering something, Jack turned towards Tracy and handed her the solution that he was carrying in his pocket. He had only brought a few with as the others were in the car. When she saw the solution in the small glass, Tracy got excited. She wanted to immediately drink the little solution inside, but Jack stopped her. You'll need to vent out a little after drinking it. So, it'll be better if you drink it after you are done with the day. In that way, you can have your supper before taking it. After venting, you'll need to rest for a while. Hearing what Jack had said, Tracy couldn't help but glance at Livingstone, who was looking at the small bottle in her hand. He had already tasted the efficiency of the liquid inside. So, he had a big impression of the small bottle. Knowing what she was thinking, Jack explained, there is a difference here. If your physique is weak, you will have to sleep after that because you will have been wasted. But for someone whose physique was already strong, he would only need to vent a little and he would be good to go. After hearing Jack's words, both Livingstone and Tracy nodded in understanding. At least they could understand what happened, especially Livingstone, who had felt that his body was full of energy the previous day. As for the 5, they were staring blankly at the small bottle that Tracy hurriedly hid when she saw the curious gazes of the 5. At this moment, Denali, who was standing beside Jack, gave him the sign that they were good. Seeing this, Jack understood the birds of the same feather flock together. So, he took 5 more small bottles from his pockets and handed them to the 5 and told them that they could simply drink it. The 5 of them looked at the small bottle in their hands curiously. And although they had been told by Livingstone about how magical the small, colorless liquid inside was, they were still doubtful about it. At the end of the day, although they could clearly see that Livingstone was completely healed, they were not present when that happened. Livingstone could see through their doubts because he was in their position not long ago. He smiled and said, "There's no need for you to give such doubtful gazes. I can tell you that the small liquid inside there is what healed me to the state that I'm in at the moment." Although they were still doubtful, they decided to trust their comrade and took the solution. In the next moment, they revealed surprised expressions because they could clearly feel that their muscles were being strengthened at a rapid speed. Now, even if they didn't want to believe it, they had no choice as the healing of their injuries was a good proof that what Livingstone had told them was true. At this moment, the explosive strength that they could feel inside them boosted their egos to the limit that it could. Now, they believed that if they faced an elephant, they would be able to kill it with a single punch. But all of that just the result of the sudden surge of strength in their bodies. As for whether they really could handle an elephant, that was something that they would have to test it out themselves. "How are you feeling?" Livingstone asked one of them. But instead of answering, this guy attacked him instead. Livingstone seemed to have been expecting that as he easily dodged to the side. Then, the 6 began fighting each other. Of course, this wasn't a real fight. It could simply be considered a sparring match. Seeing that they were too engaged in their fight, Jack decided to leave. He looked at Tracy, who was eyeing them curiously, and said, "I will leave them to you. You can ask Ayush to help you out in case there's too much work." Seeing her nodding, Jack asked Denali to leave with him. Since he had decided to speed things up, he was going to make sure that the production of the anti-leukemia pills began. Unlike the body-strengthening pills that he didn't want to share, these pills were a different story. They had to undergo clinical trials after the production of the first batch was completed before the mass production took place. That was the one that he was planning to use in order to increase both the reputation of the research center and its value. As for another recipe of pills, he didn't need to worry about that because he could simply acquire another research center to acquire the recipe as a first income reward. Before leaving, Jack made sure to inform Ayush to take the other body-strengthening solutions from Dixon's car. After that, Denali drove towards Brightway Medical Research Institute. When they got there, Jack asked Walter and the other scientists to stop the testing of the body-strengthening pills and gather for preparations for the production of another. They too continued the testing, although Jack had told them to leave that to him. Although they seemed not as motivated as before due to the failure of the body-strengthening pill, Jack wasn't going to talk about it for the time being. Instead, he would motivate them with the anti-leukemia pills. Seeing that they were all gathered, Jack went straight to the point. "I know that you guys are kind of demotivated by the fact that the pills that you were involved in the production failed. I hope that you'll set that aside for the moment and focus on another task that I'm just about to assign to you." Jack spoke. Walter and the others listened without saying a word. Jack took out the recipe that he had brought with him and handed it to Walter, who was the head of this research team. "The recipe on the paper is one for the anti-leukemia," Jack said. Seeing the flabbergasted looks that he was receiving, Jack knew that they were surprised by his words. He couldn't blame them, though, because he knew all too well that there was no treatment for leukemia. So, it was understandable that they would doubt about the recipe that Jack had handed over due to the failure in the previous pills. "You don't have to worry about them not being effective. Although the previous recipe had some problems, you should know that I didn't hire you so that you can help me in manufacturing ineffective medicine. So, you should have some confidence in me," Jack explained. When they heard him, they remembered the fact that their salaries were sky high. They too didn't believe that there was a person that was simply going to hire them so just they could waste resources. Well, that was unless that person had a peculiar taste, or he simply wanted to waste their time. And from the way that Jack was acting, he didn't seem to be that type. "Okay, boss." Walter sighed as he read through the recipe. As he looked through it, he found that everything inside was scientifically possible. So, he didn't that Jack would take his time just so as to forge something like this. After all, he himself was a person that had engaged in the research for decades already and had some great achievements by now. So, if there was anything wrong with the recipe, he would have definitely noticed it long ago. The others also joined him so that they could look through the recipe. As they did that, Jack was communicating with the system. Angel, are you sure that there's nothing that will need to be taken care of before the pills become effective? Jack asked. He didn't want what happened during the production of the body-strengthening pills to happen here as well. Although he was thankful that it was that way, Jack wanted the anti-leukemia pills to be used by the public at the moment. There are no problems at all. The pill this time was the one that you got from the reward of the system as the first-time income reward of the Institute. The aim of the recipe is to boost the Research Institute further in terms of its development. As for the body-strengthening pill, that was earned by the host after participating in the fighting competition. In other words, the pill was given to the host to improve the host's strength. Jack was relieved that there was no code to activating the pill's effectiveness. But at the same time, another question had risen in his mind. You are trying to tell me that I, too, can use the solution to strengthen myself? Jack asked incredulously. At your current authority level, the system doesn't focus on affecting those that are around you at all. And since they can use the pill, that can be considered a casualty that came from the aftermath of the system's action. Jack understood what the system was trying to imply. Just as Jack's allies could use the solution to get stronger, so could his enemies as long as they found the trick behind how to use the pills. But currently, Jack's mind was focusing on something that made him excited. That was the fact that he, too, could use the body-strengthening solution to make himself stronger. And now that he thought about it, according to the system's words, since the pill was for him to grow stronger, then he had to use it. And the previous thought in his mind was that perhaps the pill would be ineffective on him due to his high strength. But since the system had given him the pill recipe when he was already this strong, then the pills had to be effective on him too. The more that he thought about it, the more excited he got. After all, he didn't mind being stronger, although he didn't know just how strong he was currently. He wanted to leave immediately so that he could test just how strong he would be after he was strengthened by the solution. Looking at the guys who were still busy with discussing about the production, Jack said, "You guys can go on with it. If there's any problem, you can let me know as soon as possible." And with that, he left. Since there were a few things that needed to be taken care of before the production began, Denali decided to stay behind and deal with it. As for Jack, he decided to leave immediately because he was getting impatient about trying out the solution. He had seen others getting stronger and stronger, but he also wanted to taste the feeling too. After all, the perverted expressions that these guys put on after taking the solution made him curious. He didn't want to go that far. He stopped the car in front of a gym and took the solution. Since he already knew that he was supposed to vent after taking the solution, he was prepared. After gulping the whole thing down his throat, Jack waited for the reaction that was supposed to come. After waiting for a long time, he felt nothing that would make his expression turn, just like the ones that had taken the solution before him. He really was puzzled. Could it be that the solution wasn't effective on him? But how is that possible? Angel had stated that it would work. How comes there was no reaction at all? Just as he was about to ask about it, he suddenly felt that there was an increase in his strength. But the amount of increase was nothing big. Instead, like how he was 4 times stronger than an adult, he felt that he had become 6 times stronger. Currently, he could be said to be able to exert the strength of 7 adult men combined. But what puzzled Jack the most was the fact that there was no reaction in his body other than feeling the increase in his strength. You shouldn't be expecting something like that. When you received the professional combat ability, your foundation was made stable in all areas. In other words, your speed, defense, attack power, and so on are at the professional combatant level. The increase of your strength now can only be equal to 1/3 of your current foundation. So, it doesn't make your body react intensely. Jack finally understood. It was also at this moment that he suddenly noticed that he didn't have the impulse to suddenly vent out. And for some reason, he got disappointed. After all, he had just wasted much of his time to drive all the way to the gym. And now they were saying that it was no longer useful? Taking a deep breath, Jack decided that it was time for him to deal with something else. Since the two, GVSL and BMRI, were currently stable and had someone to take care of them, Jack thought that it was finally time for him to take a look at the Glaze Hotel. He had ignored it long enough after the system helped him in completing the procedures that had to be completed. The main hotel was present here in Kartu City as well. And since that was the case, it would be easier for him to take a look before heading to the Eden residential building. With that thought, Jack drove towards the Glaze Hotel. When he got there, 50 minutes had already gone past. For some reason, traffic had suddenly shot up at this time. It was already 11, close to 12. At this moment, people were always at their working places, not moving around. What was even more strange was the fact that the cars were moving opposite him, and they really used the wrong side of the road. It was as if they were running from something dangerous. Completely ignoring that for the time being, Jack parked the car at the parking lot before he strode towards the hotel's entrance. And the place seemed to be empty for some reason. Although there were a few cars here, they were too few according to what Jack could tell. The streets were completely empty of any pedestrian. It was as if this part of the city had been abandoned. Jack frowned. This was completely against the norm of a city like this. That was especially so when this was the most developed city with the highest population in the country. At this point, even a fool could tell that there was something wrong with this part of the city. A popular street in a busy city without people? Was that normally possible? Jack stopped moving and decided to try and detect if there were any abnormalities in the area. With his strength being as strong as 7 men combined, so were his senses. Jack paid attention to anything that could be detected with his hearing, smell, and his sight. As for touch, he believed that he would hear something approaching him before it touched him. And true to his expectations, Jack managed to find something that was wrong. There was a faint metallic smell. That was the smell of blood. And there were faint wailing and muffled screams that were filled with fear and anger at the same time. This made Jack's expression turn strange. Could there actually be someone that was killing another? Or could there be an accident? Jack focused further and noticed that the sound and the smell all came from the direction of the hotel. Now, Jack's expression shifted further. After all, this was his own hotel. Could there be someone that was causing trouble here? Thinking of this, Jack took his phone and texted Denali. "Can you come to Glaze Hotel?" "No. Can you hack into their CCTV footage from there and see what's going on inside there?" After that, Jack wanted to wait to know the situation inside before going in. But it seemed that somebody wasn't going to allow that to happen. "Hey you, what are you doing there?" An arrogant voice reached Jack's ears, accompanied by the sound of footsteps heading his way. Jack turned around and looked at the person that had called him. This person was wearing all black. Even his face was covered by a mask that only revealed his eyes. In his hands, there was an AR-15. Jack could immediately recognize the gun due to the fact that he was a professional combatant. So, the gun skills and so on were already merged in his memories. All that he needed to do was to think about it, and he would be able to get the information that he wanted. From the way that he could see it, Jack realized that the gun was loaded and the guy was holding the trigger, aiming towards him. He was ready to shoot. Seeing that Jack hadn't responded, the guy asked again. "I asked, what are you doing here?" Jack finally noticed something. This guy's accent was definitely not like the ones that he had met before. In other words, this guy was definitely a foreigner. But what was an armed foreigner doing in his hotel? That was a question that Jack was asking himself. The guy got angry that Jack was not replying to him. "It seems that you are dumb. If so, it won't be bad for me to increase the number of hostages here." As he spoke, he looked at Jack and said in a domineering manner, "Put your hands in front and walk towards me." Jack frowned deepened further. It seemed that this guy wasn't here with good intentions. And what was even more irritating was the fact that this guy had actually targeted his hotel. Did this guy think that he, Jack, was so easy to bully? Humph, it seemed that he had some work that he would have to do. As for where the police were at such a moment, Jack didn't think much of it as it wouldn't be helpful. He followed the instructions that he was given. He didn't want to test this guy any further as he might as well shoot at him. He himself wasn't sure if he was able to dodge a bullet or not. And he wasn't willing to use his life to try it out at all. Seeing that Jack was cooperating, the guy nodded. "Now, move ahead of me and put your hands behind you." Jack followed, and the two of them entered the hotel. But what Jack saw the moment that he stepped into the lobby area of the hotel made anger begin boiling in his heart. The reason being that the smell of blood had suddenly gotten thicker. And there was a person's corpse that was lying at the door. This corpse's dressing code indicated that before he died, he was a waiter here. That meant that this was one of his staff members that had been killed. How could Jack not be furious considering that he was supposed to be responsible for all those that were working for him? And now, there was a person that had been killed here while on duty. And although it was true that he couldn't prevent some things from happening because he wasn't omnipotent, there were some that could be stopped. Even though he didn't know why they had targeted his hotel, Jack thought that if the security here was higher, perhaps these guys might have selected another place. As he looked ahead, Jack's expression turned colder. He could see that there was yet another corpse, and the blood was actually still pouring from where he'd been shot. It was obvious that he had been killed not long ago. Jack listened to the movements behind him and realized that the guy was about 2 meters from him. It was obvious that he was cautious, although he didn't think that Jack was dangerous. This person had to be trained for him to be like that. Had he been some hooligan, he might have had the mouth of the gun on Jack's head at this moment. You brought another person in? I thought that there would be nobody else around this area by now. A guy who had just come out of the elevator looked at Jack as surprise shone in his exposed eyes as he asked, I'm very careful. From his movements, I can tell that he's not trained at all. In other words, this is an ignorant fool that was so curious about what was happening here and decided to come here and take a look. The guy that had brought Jack in stated, it seems that we are going to have even more hostages so that we can demand for more. The guy that had just come out of the elevator stated as he snickered. Jack's expression was currently cold, but without knowing what was going on here, he wasn't willing to do anything that might just blow up the situation. But in his mind, he had already sentenced these guys to death. They could have done the killing in another place, but they dared to do that in his own hotel. He was planning to have the hotel be one of the monopolies in the country, but with people dying here, the reputation of the hotel would drop. As a result, there would be less people that would dare to come to the hotel to dine. After all, if a person heard that the hotel was targeted by a certain group and there were several people that died there, then it was obvious that many of them would be scared to go there. Take him to the second floor so that he can join the others. The guy stated to the one that had brought Jack. Jack didn't do anything strange and simply followed what he was told. He got into the elevator with the guy, his expression being like that of a plastic doll. No shift of emotions could be seen, but his heart was currently boiling with rage. The moment that the elevator closed, Jack decided to take action. And although he had planned to see the situation first, he decided that he would look at it from a different perspective. The guy still had a gun pointed towards Jack. He had been paying close attention to Jack, and he had managed to see that Jack was angry after seeing the deaths in the lobby area. But so far, there wasn't even a hint of fear on his face. And although he thought that Jack was just ignorant, he had decided to be attentive of the situation. Just then, before he could act, Jack's hand grabbed the gun that was pointing towards him and pulled it in. With his immense strength and speed, the guy wasn't able to react before he was pulled towards Jack. Then, a heavy fist headed towards his face. Since Jack wanted to continue observing the situation here further, he didn't want the gun to be used as it would alert the others of the situation. As for the cameras inside the elevator, he believed that Denali must have taken care of them by now. After all, he had just felt the phone in his pocket vibrating. Although it wasn't a sure bet that it was a text from Denali, he still chose to trust his instinct.
Bang!
Jack's fist ruthlessly smashed into the guy, making him lose a grip of the gun that he was just about to pull the trigger. The force behind the attack cracked his skull, and he was thrown backwards by the huge force, his back hitting the wall of the elevator. Then, Jack hurriedly made a move and pressed for the elevator to head for the roof of the hotel. He knew that he wasn't fast enough to be able to deal with this guy, then change his clothes before the elevator arrived on the second floor. As for whether the elevator would stop on the second floor first before heading to the top floor, Jack decided to put that aside for the moment. Before the guy could react due to the suddenness of the attack and the pain that was already going through his body from the attack, Jack had already gotten in front of him. Then, a rain of punches landed on the guy. Jack didn't pull his punches at all. Since they were cruel, he too would be cruel to them. There was nothing like, I'll only beat you a little, so that you can go to prison and reflect on your actions. Would reflecting his actions do anything to bring back the people that he had killed?
No.
And although even killing him wouldn't make the ones that he had killed come back to life, at least it consoled the hearts of the victims. Knowing that he only had a few seconds to deal with this guy before the elevator stopped on the second floor, Jack hurriedly threw heavier punches. With the strength of 7 men combined falling on the head of a guy who couldn't even react, the results were obvious. The guy died not long after 4 punches landed on him. The punches had put a lot of cracks on his skull. Furthermore, the heavy force of the punches had shocked the brain and led to internal bleeding. In the end, although the guy was cautious of Jack, he still ended up dead. When Jack saw that the guy was already dead, Jack went ahead and pulled him so that they hid on one corner of the elevator. In this way, these guys would see that the elevator was empty when it opened. Furthermore, none other than the guy who was on the ground floor knew that the two of them were going up. Or, maybe if there was someone in the control room, that person would surely know. But Jack didn't think that he would know what was happening in the elevator. Looking at the light that showed that they had arrived on the second floor, Jack took a deep breath before holding his breath. He didn't do anything that would speak of his presence when they got there. But against his expectations, Jack saw that the elevator wasn't stopping at all. Instead, it kept moving higher. This was a great surprise to him. Jack hurriedly took out his phone and looked at it. True, there was a message from Denali. Master, there are a total of 14 armed people in the building. They all have AR-15, pistols and daggers. All the customers and the staff members are held on the second floor at the moment. After reading it, Jack couldn't help but get impressed by Denali. She was so fast in that she had already looked into the hotel and knew how many people were here and what weapons they had on them in less than 5 minutes. He smiled. Since Denali was the one that was in control at the moment, Jack didn't need to worry about being found that easily as long as he didn't expose himself and followed Denali's instructions. He no longer needed to disguise himself as one of them. He could use Denali's help to find more information about the situation inside there. As for what he would do after getting the information, that would of course be to deal with the guys here. He didn't know where Denali had made the elevator to take him to, but he trusted her as she was loyal to him. So, while waiting for the elevator to take him around, Jack took a few things from this guy. He didn't take the AR-15 with him as he thought that it would only be inconvenient for him. And although he had the skills to easily handle the gun, he didn't feel comfortable using the big gun to deal with a small group of people. Furthermore, with the pistol and the dagger in his hand, he was sure that he could still easily deal with the guys here. As for their aim for attacking the hotel, he would have to ask the person who was in charge of the group here. As he thought of this, Jack managed to take all the important possessions of this guy, including the weapons and the walkie-talkie that he had on him. By the time that he was fully armed, the elevator stopped. It was on the 5th floor. Jack looked out of the open elevator and saw that the whole floor was desolate. There was nobody here. He was just about to leave the elevator when he thought of something. He went back to the corpse of the guy that he had just killed and took the earphones that he had on him. The reason as to why he took them was simple. It would allow him to communicate with Denali easily. He had previously ignited them because he wasn't in the mood to listen to music. After connecting the earphones to the phone, he made a call to Denali, who received it in a span of a few seconds. Master, on this floor, there is one person on the staircase. He's facing the 4th floor. He's not paying that much attention, probably because he's not expecting that there would be someone here. Denali stated as soon as she received the call. Jack nodded. He then asked, how many casualties are there at the moment? Currently, a total of 15 people have been killed. As for the others, they are all on the 2nd floor alongside 7 of the 14. Denali replied. Jack understood. His eyes flashed with a cold light. He was going to take action right at this moment. Master, I have asked Klein, Livingstone, and the others to come there. Even I will be there in around 20 minutes. Denali stated. Jack didn't think much of the guys here. With weapons in his hands together with the fact that he was physically stronger than them, he could easily deal with them due to the advantage of none of them knowing that he was here to attack. With fast and soundless steps, Jack hurried towards the staircase. With his ability to control his own body, the other guy wouldn't even notice how Jack got to him. Jack wasn't here to play with them. And knowing that the smell of blood would surely attract the attention of the others, Jack made a decisive move. With his fast speed, he was able to get to the guy before he could react. The guy had never expected that there would be someone coming from the top. After all, they had made sure to clean up the whole hotel and brought everyone on the 2nd floor. The moment that Jack arrived in front of him, He grabbed him by the neck and pushed him to the wall. At the same time, he quickly disarmed the guy. What followed was that he quickly broke the guy's neck, ending his life. Then, he pushed the dead body on the ground and asked, "Anyone on the fourth floor?" "Two of them," Denali responded. Jack had already dealt with two of them. In total, there were only 12 of them left. Jack then took the corpse to the fifth floor and hid it in one of the private rooms. But that was after he took the pistol and the dagger from the corpse. With that done, he began heading to the lower floor. Denali told him the exact location of the two people here and what they were doing, and as expected, they were alert. This was the behavior that made Jack suspect that they were from another nation that was fighting against them. And they had to be soldiers here in a mission. They had said that with more hostages, they could ask for more. As for what it was that they would be asking for, Jack had no idea. But all the same, since they dared to kill someone here, they had to face the same fate. After knowing the exact locations, Jack made a move. As for the cameras, Jack wasn't afraid that he would be noticed. As for the backup that she had called for, although he didn't think that he needed it to deal with these guys, he still needed someone to clean up the scene. One by one, Jack began dealing with the group. He would sneak onto them and kill them by breaking their necks. He made sure not to spill much blood because he knew that it would attract the attention of the others. And although there was already a stench of blood in the hotel, that was on the second, first, and ground floor. As for the upper floors, there wasn't a single corpse or a trace of blood, as the only ones present here were the ones that he had personally killed. After dealing with the fourth floor, Jack headed to the third floor. On this floor, there were 3 guys here. With a total of 14, they were distributed in such a way that half of them was present with the hostages. There were supposed to be 2 of them on the third floor, but one of them had joined them there. Now, Jack had already dealt with 4 of them, leaving only 10 of them. There were currently 6 on the second floor, 3 on the third floor, and 1 on the ground floor. The only problem that he would have would be to deal with the 6 on the second floor. The second floor was an open space that was filled with tables. And currently, there were a lot of people who were congested on the floor. So, for him to act fast enough to ensure that the hostages were not implicated was something that he had to take care of seriously. He steadily sneaked onto the 3 who were discussing something. Since they were not scattered, Jack had to be more careful and fast enough to deal with the 3 of them before they could do anything that would alert the others. "Are you sure that they are coming? We have already waited for over an hour now," one of the 3 guys stated. "Do you think that the Azaminian higher-ups will be willing to exchange the lives of these hostages for our mission target?" "I'm not sure why, but I feel quite uneasy. But this was supposed to be a foolproof plan. We did a lot of investigation before we carried out the mission. So, I believe that they would have to agree considering that the lives of hundreds of their citizens are in our hands. I'm having a strange feeling right now. We are mainly guarding the top floors because we don't expect that if the military sent someone, he would be able to sneak in through the ground, but most likely from the top. But although we are flawless, I think that there's something that isn't right. What could go wrong? We have left the other floors and the roof without someone. In this way, they might think that we are careless. But when they dare to sneak here, we will kill the one that has sneaked over as well as a few hostages to tell them that we are serious." Jack, on the other hand, listened to what they were saying keenly. He wanted to get a few clues about what they were doing here. And he had managed to find out that they were simply using his hotel and those inside as the hostages. This made Jack's expression turn cold. It seemed that he would have to establish his reputation and that of the companies or businesses under him. In this way, people would think twice before they dared to come and attack him. His eyes flickered with a cold light that soon disappeared. He nodded to himself. He hadn't done a mistake in killing the other 4 guys. After all, these guys were intent on killing a few more people. That meant that he had to hurry up his steps. Otherwise, someone was going to suffer soon. Back to a few seconds ago, Jack had just arrived in a corner where he could clearly hear what these guys were talking about. But what made him frown was that they were speaking a language that he didn't understand at all. Just as he was wondering on what to do, a system prompt appeared in front of him. Emergency Mission Program activated. Advance reward, Professional Human Language Mastery. Accompanying task that you'll have to complete so that you can permanently have the reward is as follows. Task: Show your language proficiency and amaze those that boast to be masters. Time limit, 4 weeks. He was surprised that the system came in handy. He had thought about using the chance that he was given by the system, but in the end, he thought that it wasn't worth it to waste such a chance on something like this. Since this group could speak Asamenian, he may as well beat them up before interrogating them. And, if they thought that they couldn't talk, he would leave them to Denali to interrogate them. She was trained by a secret organization, and she had some skills on her. The system had given her such a background when he selected the skills for her. And what was a surprise to him this time was the fact that he wasn't required to earn any money to complete the system task. As long as he impressed those guys that thought that they were the masters when it came to mastering different languages, he would be able to complete the task. And he had been given a whole month to do that. It seemed that the system had seen that it might be difficult for him to complete the mission because of the fact that it would be difficult for him to find those guys and impress them. After all, there was no way that he would go around looking for them. Then after finding them, he would start showing off in front of them so that they might get impressed. He was sure that the result that he would get would definitely be their resentment rather than a good impression from them. They were proud people. What would happen when a person went to show off in front of them? In other words, he had to look for a good method that he could use so that he could impress them. The best one would be if they were the ones that needed the person who could speak different human languages. Without hesitation, Jack accepted the task. Immediately after that, Jack felt that there was a big amount of information that had appeared in his mind. And as he heard the group speaking, he finally understood what they were saying. It was as if what they were talking about, their accent, their language, and so on were natural to him. Jack decided to focus on what they were saying at the moment. But, as he listened further, he was surprised. Although these guys were sure that there would nobody that would be here, and they were speaking in their own language, they still didn't mention what had brought them here. Back to the present. Jack waited for a while longer, but he found nothing that helped him to know what they were talking about. So, he decided to take action. Since they were a little lax, Jack thought that he would have to do something now. He didn't have that much time. So, he had to deal with them now that their guard wasn't at the highest point.